I think his chief aim is not so much to solve the problem in the military sense of the word. I think he doesn't hope that this new fresh meat, as they call it in Russia now, will change the situation on the battlefield. If his professional army didn't fare well, there is little hope that this inexperienced draftees will change something. I think his main aim lies in the sphere of diplomacy. He wants to impress Ukrainians to show that he is really resolute. He is ready to escalate. So it's better to start negotiating with him. He's, last week he spoke at least twice. He spoke about his readiness to stop shooting immediately and to come down to the negotiation table. He told this first when he spoke to Modi, Prime Minister of India. Then for the second time, he told this to Erdogan, and he was complaining that I'm ready to negotiate, and Ukrainians refusing to do this. He wants them to understand that he is ready to escalate. If he is ready to risk the draft, the mass mobilization, that means he might undertake the next step, and the next step is nuclear weapons. So it's better to talk to him, not to wage war with him. That's his point.
Let me ask you then, do you think that threat to use nuclear weapons was a serious one? Is it just intended to send out a tough message, or do you think it is a realistic threat?
Well, I wouldn't take chances to try and check if it's realistic. It's not ruled out that he really means it. He has nothing to lose. For him, military defeat means total delegitimization and loss of power in Russia. And after this, going to jail for the rest of till the end of his life. And definitely he hates this idea. And if probably he would be ready to burn the whole world if this risk arises, if the choice comes. It's hard to imagine that a normal person can make this choice, but he is not a normal person. He is like Goebbels, who poisoned his children just when he understood that Nazi Germany was defeated.
So you really think that if he fears that he is losing the war in Ukraine, if these latest threats don't work, that he could use nuclear weapons?
Yes, I mean this. He might try to do this. The other question is if the system works. It's not enough for one man's decision, to start a nuclear war. There is a whole chain of command, and those people, they might disobey the command because they all have children and wives, and probably they don't want to burn in this nuclear fire. So it might be he gives command and the army disobeys it, and this means a military coup. This is also possible.
Doesn't President Putin realize the dangers to his own people?
Well, of course he understands, but he doesn't care for this. If Russian people are not doing what he wants and he wants them to win the war, then he doesn't care for them. They're traitors.
So what about this mobilization, this call-up of 300,000 more reservists? What do you know about what the reaction has been in Russia to this?
It's absolutely negative. It's considered as an very. It's a violation of the social contract, which irritates people, which infuriates them or depresses them. Different people, different reactions, but all their reactions are negative. And he was the social contract meant that okay, man, you are giving to me the right to do the politics which I want, and you are not getting into politics, and I am giving to you in exchange like this improving living standards and the feeling that you belong to great power, and now he's violating both of his promises. First of all, there is no comfort in going to war, which is where you can really die. It's not a joke. It's the Russian army is being defeated and retreating. And number two, there is no longer feeling of belonging to a real world power, the most powerful country in the world, because small Ukraine is defeating our armies. So the previously loyal Russian public, they feel that they're being deceived, and riots are absolutely possible. Actually, today protests already started. So far, to a small scale, they require some time to gather strength, but it's really possible that the protests will be getting stronger and stronger, and it might lead to actual revolution, especially in case that Ukrainians keep defeating Putin's armies.
Yes, we've seen more than 100 people arrested, and we know that, of course, the Kremlin has very tough penalties for anyone who protests against what President Putin is doing. Do you think this is a sign of real discontent that could lead to moves against President Putin from inside Russia?
Definitely, this one of the testaments of discontent growing and protest moods growing. But I'm telling you, this is just the first signs, and actually we can expect much more. You know, it requires some time for people to get adapted to the thoughts that the reality is changing. Very few people are able to react immediately. For the majority of people, this mass mobilization is still something like virtual reality, TV news. They really need to receive these tickets. They really have to see their own nearest and dearest coming back in coffins. Only then it will really occur to them that the previous world is over and it's time to go back into politics. So far, people were depoliticized for more than 20 years. They felt alienated from the political process, so it requires some time to get political again.
President Putin has been condemned by so many world leaders, President Biden, our British Prime Minister Liz Truss, and many, many others. How do you think that affects the mood in Russia?
Well, definitely this depresses Russians. They are not ready to, the majority of Russians, they are not ready to wage war against the whole world. Deep inside, no matter how patriotic their speeches are, deep inside they understand that it's impossible to win a war against the whole world. That's why Russian propaganda is so much busy with showing presumed support from the third world, from non-Western countries, trying to portray Russia as the leader of a huge international front, which is fighting the Western world. So, and the more leaders speak up against Putin, the more complicated his situation is. Definitely, the elites and the mass public, they are getting depressed and getting less and less optimistic, and are beginning to look around, looking for alternative ways, looking for alternatives to Putin.
Just finally, you clearly believe that President Putin is concerned that he is being defeated in Ukraine. Do you think he would be prepared to go into serious negotiations now to end the war?
Well, he is ready, of course. There is no military solution to the problem. So He is ready to do that, but of course, for him to be ready to not come out with great demands, not to demand too much before the negotiations start, the Ukrainians should achieve as many military victories as possible. If the front is stable, it's one thing. If the Russians are retreating and the Ukrainians are advancing, then it's a totally different thing. In this case, Putin will be much more, much weaker, and he will be looking for compromises, will not be demanding too much.